As soon as we hit that highway, boom, felt like my new beginning was coming.
Where the fuck are we at?
Hi, everyone. I'm Maia. I'm a film and culture critic known on YouTube as Broe Deschanel, and I have the honor of being joined here today by Bill and Turner Ross. You may know them for their acclaimed independent films like 45365, Contemporary Color, or Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets. And today they're here to discuss their latest film, Gasoline Rainbow. Without spoiling, Gasoline Rainbow takes us on a ride of all the corners of America through the eyes of a group of teens during their summer after graduation. It's an incredibly candid and playful portrait of adolescent curiosity and joy and frustration. And it manages to be both a timely and timeless take on a country that always seems to be on the precipice. So I'm very excited to talk about it. And thank you both for speaking to me today. I'm going to start off with a few questions of my own, and then I'm going to open it up to questions that were submitted by the MUBI student members. So,
Great.
Thanks for being here.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Incredible. So just to start off, Gasoline Rainbow is about a cross-country road trip, which I think places it within a canon of great American road movies. I'm thinking of like Easy Rider and Thelma and Louise, and most recently we got Zola. And keeping in mind, like when this film was made, which was after the pandemic, this idea of like freely traversing across a country feels very prescient. It actually reminded me a bit of this other teen road movie, Crossroads, with Britney Spears. I don't know if you've seen
Oh,
it.
of course, yeah.
Not that they're similar, but just in the sense that they both place this emphasis on being a young person in middle America and like needing to get to the coast, this theme of getting to the coast. So I wanted to ask you what inspired you to make a road movie of your own and why now?
So much. We were, like everyone else, sitting around during the pandemic and texting each other a lot and
Stuck inside.
and losing our minds. I have trouble sitting still, but I was like, this has to suck for others more than myself. And we landed on, for teens that want to leave their small town or their situation, and then that being compounded by being forced to be inside, that had to be the worst. So that, I think that's what initially sparked the conversation, which then led to talk of making another film.
But we were these kids, and I think still are, actually, and still get around like this. And, we in our own places, but I had actually spent some time up there in the Northwest, hopping trains and hitchhiking around. And it was just a place that for both of us, we were so enamored by, and it felt like a great backdrop for a moment in which there was a generation of people coming into being who were very likely ready to sort of be shot out of a cannon. And, we wanted to have a landscape that would mirror sort of the cathartic emotional landscape that those spaces always provide. So it seemed like a way to tell a story, to go through an emotional journey, to meet new people, to have an experience in real time and sort of get the lay of the land.
And we had just seen Crossroads, and so
well, I mean, our whole there's a canon of these type of movies, like Wim Wenders' Kings of the Road is amazing and aimless, and or like My Own Private Idaho, shot in that part of the world. Stand By Me, Goonies, these are their own adventures against that landscape and are such a part of our experience in terms of films and what we came up with, but also as part of the great American myth and that westward migration and the search for the frontier, whatever that may be.
That makes a lot of sense. I actually did think of My Own Private Idaho when I was watching this, and I felt really interesting too, because we're thinking about teenagers in the pandemic, but there's also historically been this thing with teenagers where they're kind of transient. And this movie made me think about this a lot, but just the fact that there's not a lot of space for teenagers in public, but they always seem to occupy these spaces outdoors. And I find the kids in this movie are kind of always outdoors. You almost never see them inside. And it felt like a little bit of like a gift to Gen Z to have these kids being able to kind of be outside and be free.
Yeah.
But even something I noticed with them when they, there's this moment where they, I mean, maybe spoilers, but they get to a destination and they see a cop car passing them and they're immediately all kind of uneased by it because they think it's coming for them. And it just, yeah, it just made me think about how teenagers don't really have a space that they can fit in, or that they're allowed to fit into, physically.
Yeah, that in between, that liminal space, you're not a kid anymore, but you're not an adult. The adult spaces don't want you, and the kid spaces aren't where you want to be. And there's so much world to explore and figure out. And for us, it was always a backdrop against which to see ourselves, and also the people in the individual landscapes. The folks that they meet along the way are emanating from those spaces. They're speaking from those spaces, and there's a little token to learn along the way, like meeting the Scarecrow or the Tin Man. They're speaking for their place.
That makes so much sense. And I think even with the kids, like I felt like all the people in the film felt extremely authentic and like truthful to the experience of people in the US, and especially the teenagers, like they felt extremely truthful to the Gen Z disposition, especially through those like voiceover testimonials that we get for each character. I thought that was really great. So I was going to ask, could you tell us a bit about the process for casting the film and your experience working with these performers?
Yeah, we up until this point we had cast all of our films, but we thought with at the age we're at now, it might be inappropriate to show up in high school parking lots. So
I think creepy was what we
yeah. So two of our younger buddies here in New Orleans had a casting agency, two young women, and they we had wanted to work together, and so they went up ahead of us by about 3 months, and we're like flyering, meeting people in coffee shops.
It was also the middle of the
casting.
pandemic, so you couldn't interact with people in the same way. You kind of had to find them in the wild.
Yeah, so they cast primarily every face that you see on screen, and then went on the journey with us as well.
But we wanted to look for a group of people that could speak for that experience, because while it's inspired by and informed by our own history with these situations and our own love of these kind of scenarios, we wanted them to be able to speak for themselves. Our generation was different, had a different outlook, and we don't want to impose ourselves on whatever this voice is, and for us, it's always an act of discovery. We always want to be learning something, always be surprised, and not have the preconceived notions. So we figured if we rounded up enough interesting faces, they might be able to coalesce and create some sort of alchemy of an idea of what they're going through.
What is something you learned like from working with this generation? What was that discovery, or one of them at least?
I've learned that our generation doesn't have a fucking idea about what this generation is and should stop talking about it. And we learned so much, and we were so impressed with the group of kids that we were with and the people they interacted with. We were just like so overjoyed by their curiosity and their want to engage with otherness and their availability to the adventure. It was a surprise every time.
Yeah, and we bonded over music a lot of times, which for them, they were listening to stuff that we had been listening to at their age, and was just like, how the hell do you guys know this?
Yeah.
Like, we were riding around during casting with Natalie and Nicole, and they're listening to Cypress Hill, and it's like I had that tape.
Time is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
So we could make some real connections, and there is just like an intrinsic spirit of youth that we certainly can identify with and remember. But just being present with them and their experience, and knowing that what we were doing in a very bleak time in this country, in the world, in our lives, they were doing something hopeful. They were engaging with the world and still being surprised by it. The idea that there is still a future and there is still a frontier, even if we think everything around us is crumbling.
Yeah, it feels like a very hopeful movie. And I love what you said about, not speaking on behalf of the generation, because I think something you both seem to have mastered within your filmography is this very distinct cinematic language that feels very almost unauthored, but in a deliberate way. And I felt like you could really feel it here with Gasoline Rainbow. You have this like very restless camera and this really vibrant palette and this very voyeuristic dialogue. It's something I also noticed with Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets, but that you guys like to kind of have dialogue happen off camera and then like focus on shots of other things. And like you have this very jazzy sound bed going on. So I think just from an initial kind of watch, you'll notice that this is a very like atmospheric film. So I was going to ask if you could speak about any visual or like technical inspirations you had for the film and how you went about achieving that.
Well, I mean, because Oregon, because that part of the world is so beautiful, it's hard to make a bad image. So a lot of it was like looking away from the obvious pretty thing. Of course, like inevitably there's gonna be beauty in, throughout the trip, but like that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be our crew, our kids, and if they happen to be in front of a beautiful landscape, so be it. But that shouldn't be the focus.
That said, we did compose a pretty fucking epic landscape, and that was the first thing we cast.
But I was saying you can't avoid it.
The idea being that it's intrinsically there and doesn't need its own focus.
Yeah.
I mean, every time we prepare for these, there are walls and walls of visual references, theoretical references, just all of the things that we take into the lead up, so that when we're there, we can be ultra present. And the way that the reason they feel the way they do is because it's a continual searching. These scenes might be, 30 seconds or 2 minutes out of, 10 hours of shooting, because we're looking for the thing and trying to follow the energy. And so a lot of times we usually don't wear headphones, because we want to watch and see where the energy is going and what the engagement is. And we did an interesting thing in the edit this time to sort of further that, which is to say that there are different layers in the medium of film, the sound and the visual and story and everything underneath that. And we broke everything into its component parts in the edit to see if we could get rid of redundancies. If the image is telling it, then you don't need the audio to tell it.
But we broke it down separately. Like I did what I normally do and did an assembly edit with picture and sound. Turner did a picture only cut, and our assistant editor did an audio only cut. So it was like a audio book of like what the film would be. And we didn't share notes for 3 months. And then we took a look at what everybody had done. And it was pretty revealing of like how little information you needed in order to get something across. Like, in Turner's piece, it was like, oh, we can just tell this whole section visually. Or in Tom's piece, we could tell this whole section with just, audio while we look at something else, like you said. So,
which is also usually the criticism of what we do. If we have criticism, it's like, well, there's not really a story. But the thing is, we want to trust an audience to be present in it. Life doesn't necessarily have a story either, but you can follow a narrative and you can be present in the moments. And for us, the memories of that age and of those types of trips are moments, are pieces, and not a consistent narrative that's imposed on it. It's the little things, the little pieces and conversations and images along the way that somehow create a mosaic in your mind of a memory.
Yeah, totally. And I think if you zoom out, you'll see this kind of like natural narrative unfolding and like baked into the story anyways, especially the idea of a road trip. Like it obviously has the beginning and an end. Like it's gonna have a narrative. It's just you're not forcing it or imposing it onto the film. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. This was filmed in 2021, I believe. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. It seems like there's kind of this clear like political backdrop to the story of the film. Like you got the character Natalie speaking about her dad's deportation. You have some discussion of like the heat in Oregon and global warming. So I just wanted to ask what degree you were hoping to infuse a political backdrop on Gasoline Rainbow. Was that something you were thinking about, or did it just happen to be there?
It thankfully happened naturally. Without hitting you over the head, I think we want all the films to speak to the times that they're made. But this happened naturally. I mean, our world, our country has all kinds of issues, and I'm glad that that the kids felt comfortable enough to bring those things up.
Yeah, there's an inherency to these things. Same answer for the imagery. It's like it should be speaking for itself without overtly referring to it. We think about those things all the time. We certainly are aware of them, and they play a role in the undercurrent of thought that Bill and I carry into these spaces, but we're never there to focus on that or to ask any of the people who are collaborating with us to force that into their experience. We're hoping we create the conditions of empathy and experience so that they are responding to it with their real reflections of their experience in this time and place.
A lot of times we'll cut out stuff that's too specific to the time period.
It's like our last movie, Bloody Nose Empty Pockets, is shot the day after Trump was elected. They were certainly talking about it a little bit more than occurs in film.
Yeah.
But it's more like, what are we saying when we're not saying the overt things? What is happening when you're not looking right at the thing that everybody's looking at? What does life look like? And how does it make its way into our normal experiences?
Yeah, I guess it goes back to that idea of like letting the land speak for itself. And I think it's something that's like simmering underneath this film, but never needs to be overtly said, or like it's just something that is experienced by the character without you sending that message on your own. Yeah, I thought that was great. My last question is a bit of a silly one, but I couldn't help but note the reference to Lord of the Rings. We hear
Yeah.
It was great. We hear the Shire theme at one point, and there's this character who goes on a diatribe about Tom Bombadil, which I was like, wow, deep cut for the readers. So what was your reasoning for including that in the film?
That actually happened naturally. Tell the story of Clayton approaching.
Well, we've been furthering this idea of creating layers of artifice so that people can be very much themselves, but also express whatever they want to express. They become their own characters. And with Clayton really loved the idea of considering himself as a character. And in the middle of the night, after the kids all passed out, I mean, that's real time. We're shooting that in real time. He comes up to me, he says, "Turner, I think I finally figured it out, man." I'm like, I feel like I'm like Tom Bombadil, that character in the Lord of the Rings, the travesty that it was cut out of the films, because the thing is, in the books, he's there, he can't take them all the way, but he can give them the tools they need to go further, So I feel like that's my place in all of this. I said, "That's exactly right, Clayton, go with that." "Okay, I'm going to make him some breakfast." Play the Shire. Just like,
Okay.
That's his own invention.
Yeah.
Based on the idea of, we have these conversations and then they can play with them as they wish. That's some serendipity.
Wow. Okay. That's incredible. Yeah, he does feel a bit like a bard character or someone that you're in a forest. I guess all the characters in any road story, but like I was thinking about how Lord of the Rings is a bit of a parallel to the road movie because they are on the road, maybe by foot, but yeah. So I think these kind of characters they meet along the way, these kind of eccentric people, or that felt really apt. And then I was thinking about the Shire too, and I was like, are they home? Like, is this a place of belonging? They couldn't be further from home right now, but I felt like it was a nice reference.
Got to find your Shire.
Find your Shire. Find the Shire within.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to the questions that were submitted by some of the MUBI student members.
All right.
Let's go. So the first one, was how would you describe directing as a pair, particularly when dealing with differences of opinion?
Hmm.
Well, we have the advantage of having done this since we were very little, before we considered this a profession or in any serious way. So I think that was built in. I think it's sort of built in of knowing how to work together to problem solve. Um, as we've gotten older, um, and hopefully matured emotionally. I think we've learned how to, when to give somebody space, when to go with an idea, to allow someone to, even if you disagree, like let's see what that would look like. So it's a lot of practice. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we have a dance, and we have a shared interest that we have dedicated our lives to. So by the time we arrive in production, we've already spent so much time with this, arriving at the thing that we wish to do and understanding why we're there and what the intention is and what our hopes are. And then we have an immense amount of trust, and we work together towards that common goal. So it's also good to be able to recognize when someone is more appropriate for a certain role, conversation, shot, when each of us can shine a little brighter, and making sure that we're giving deference to that.
Okay, amazing. It's a bit of a balance, I suppose.
Yeah. Did we fight at all on this? In the earlier films we would, but we've again, I think we've grown a lot.
I'm sure we got a little bitchy, but I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, give us some tea.
I'd like to, in order to.
We just had too much to do. That was insane.
Yeah.
When would we have fought? I don't know. I think we gave.
I don't remember any like blow ups or anything.
There's a lot of hugs.
Oh,
I'm tired to at the end of the day to fight about anything, really.
What a waste. Yeah.
I guess the advice is be as busy as possible and tired.
Yeah. Who worked harder? The thing is, like, if you're both exhausted at the end of the day, well, then nobody can really complain.
That's perfect. Work ethic. Work ethic is all that matters.
Well, be kind, listen.
No.
And that also is what matters.
Patience is important,
Very
Yeah.
much so.
The next question was, are your own experiences from the end of high school reflected in the film?
Oh, yeah. But also life. Like, yeah, it's a many layered question, because Bill and I still do stuff like this. Like, in sort of the recent political turmoil the last couple of years, I just maybe just last summer, I went and just hitchhiked across Nebraska because I wanted to see what people were up to, like just talk to folks. And Bill and I have done stuff like that over and over throughout the years, taking trips, and the impetus for the film was first casting the landscape. So we went and we ran that circuit several times, thousands of miles just together to meet people, many of whom were cast, to get, embed ourselves in location, to understand the feel of it. But we always used to film ourselves doing that stuff. We have a bunch of in-house road movies that are just documents, and so many journals and things to pull from. When we were this age, we were mostly writing short stories back and forth. We would have these experiences, and then we kept a file over the years called Episodes of Delinquency. And it was all those stories about that time. And it has always sat there as a potential source of inspiration. And it certainly was here. It's just we didn't want to regurgitate those stories. They were more like, inspiration for, remembrances of, as we prepared ourselves for it.
But I deeply identify with the uncertainty, the unknowing, the fear. When I was their age, I was working at a restaurant and washing dishes, and my girlfriend was a year younger than me, And I was like, I don't, I'm good. But like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I don't like, nothing's really pulling me in a certain direction. And so that, there would be trips and stuff, like just getting in the car with friends, but like, yeah, I didn't know. And I thought I was stuck in a small town, and
Always so much unknowing.
yeah. And so like I really, really identified with them. But like also being the type of person being like, I want to know what's out there and I want to be doing other stuff, but I just don't know what to do.
We lived on Main Street growing up, and there was a light at the end of the road down the way, and we would watch that road and try to imagine what happened if you kept going on it. Feeling like we were,
Well, before we could drive, and then once we could drive,
well, then we started going.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just really knowing and identifying with that feeling of imagining that there's a place, a place somewhere for us, like Micah opens the film with, Makai opens the film with. Imagining there's a place for us and then going and trying to find it.
Was that kind of the inspiration behind the light flashing near the end of the film? Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering about that.
Is the
Yeah,
light
I think.
actually the light from the film is right there.
Oh my gosh. This is in the building today.
Movie magic.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I've been thinking about how important it is as like a creative person or an artist to keep a journal and to keep a document of all your feelings, because you never know when it's going to come in handy. I think this is a good example of that. The next question is, was there a turning point or moment of epiphany in your career thus far?
Just every fucking time. I don't turning point or epiphany. Well, I mean, we could bounce through a bunch of them. The first time we made a movie was just to see if we could pull it off, and then it worked, and that was an epiphany, and we kept going.
Yeah, I mean, yes, yes. I mean, all the time. There's just twists and turns, and that's what makes it exciting and terrifying. But after the first movie came out, and we didn't know anybody in the film industry or had never been to a film festival before. So when the film came out and it won the film festival that it was at, and it got incredible reviews, and we didn't know what to do. It was pretty scary because we were being put on this pedestal, and so we're, what the hell are we supposed to do now? And so out of terror, we made another one. We were just like, okay, well, let's just make another one because I don't know what else to do.
17 years later.
Yeah.
You kind of have to ride the wave while it's there, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, we just kept working and still have, but then there are turning points. Like we spent a year collaborating with David Byrne, who was a hero of ours, and then became a collaborator and a friend, and we learned so much through that experience. But also each film is its own turning point and epiphany, because these things are so alive for us and such big learning experiences for us that each one of them then begets the next one. The impetus for every film is that we try to scare ourselves as much as possible and do things that we don't know how to do. So each film is its own epiphany and its own turning point, which leads to the next one. So now we're back to the terror.
Yeah. We just got home. We just got home from opening the film all over the country. And yesterday was our first day home. And I was like sitting on the couch being like, oh shit. What are we gonna do now?
Working on it.
So it doesn't end.
Yeah, I feel like filmmaking is such an incredible feat that, it like commands all of your energy and attention. And it's such a singular experience that the concept of finishing it, must feel so.
It is all consuming.
Yeah, it's always strange. And you always know after the first one, that it's going to come, that all of a sudden the film is no longer alive for you. It is, and it's about to be for other people, but not for yourself. And so you have this sort of separation, anxiety, or I don't know. you live with it for so long, and then all of a sudden you're not living with it, and it's just
like empty nests. And
yes, seriously, it's like it's a weird sort of melancholy and terror of like, oh shit, okay, yeah. And even though you know it's coming, you still feel it.
I guess people aren't kidding when they call their work my baby.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that.
it's complicated.
I wouldn't say those words, but it feels weird.
Very fair, very fair. But I love that idea of a film kind of dying and then coming to life
Yeah.
for the audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is any recommendations for those looking to find a creative partner?
Ooh, I love it. Yes, be creative.
It's a good start.
Like no, but seriously, like we have found all our creative partners through doing work, and
they were all the other people who did work like that.
Yeah, like find your people. If you're doing it, you will attract other people. You will be in the same rooms as the people you want to be in the same room with, and when our first film came out, again, we didn't know anybody, but the producers that we still work with to this day found us, and they said, we want to produce your next movie. And that has continued for 15 years now. So I just
the credits of our films still have every one of them has names of people that we worked with when we were teenagers.
Yeah.
Because it was people like us found people like us, and we did the work, and everything else sort of filters away. If you have to drag people kicking and screaming into it, then it might not be what you want to do, because there's so much trust involved, and collaboration is such an embracing and a letting go, and such an exciting frontier to head into.
And also realizing that creative, I'm not saying this about us, a creative partnership might only be for one project. And that's great. And you will find other creative partners, but
we always ask each other before every movie, do you want to make another movie with me again? Gotta be complicit in this, consent.
Yeah.
Consent is key.
Yeah. This is going to be a lot.
Have to go into the fucking shit.
So it kind of has to have a degree of longevity, like whether that's for the duration of a film or for the duration of a career, essentially.
But you don't know till you get there, I don't think, and you just have to test the waters, throw yourself at it. That's it. You'll figure it out along the way, and what works for you and what doesn't. We have our own way of working, and there are people who like to work with us that way, and there are people who definitely don't like to work the way that we do. So that's okay.
Yeah.
Is there a specific style or like approach that you guys have that you find other people might not understand?
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah. It's very, it's as constructed and thought out as it is. The actual making of it is so wild and unknown. It's the unknown parts that make our movies so beautiful, but the unknown is the scary part for other people.
I mean, from a production standpoint, that's insane.
Yeah.
To not know what's going to happen or how you're going to get there.
Yeah. I feel like so much of filmmaking is like wanting the certainty, because there's so much money involved, and time. It's like wanting the certainty of knowing what's going to happen each day. And we work the exact opposite.
Yeah, because that's the beauty of it, is being uncertain.
Yeah.
And believing that the conditions will provide it.
I think that really comes through in your filmmaking, and especially in Gasoline Rainbow. I think this feeling of spontaneity. So it's hard not to watch and be like, how did they do this? And I think that's great. I think that's a great thing to leave the viewer with. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're on to our final question, which is, which films or filmmakers would you recommend to watch before or after Gasoline Rainbow?
Cool. Ooh, that's fun. Well, I mean, the Muppet movie is a really, really good starting point. It depends That's a good question.
Les Blank.
I mean, Les Blanc always as a source of inspiration. There are specific films that definitely inspired this one, and there are references within the film to those films. My Own Private Idaho being one of them for sure.
Agnes Varda.
Agnes Varda, always. Wim Wenders, if we're just going down filmmaker lane. Yeah, all that you can, I guess.
And Crossroads.
And Crossroads.
Yes. And Brittany.
Just kidding.
There's a lot of music out there, a lot of books, a lot of.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it is based on the inspo is pulled from.
Like we grew up reading On the Road, like just go back to the canon of, this kind of stuff. It's out there.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. So I wanted to thank you guys again for speaking to me today. It's been a huge honor.
Thank you.
A pleasure. Very good questions.
Thank you.
And the stuff you're putting out is really cool. I hope this drives people there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So you can find Gasoline Rainbow streaming now on MUBI, and I personally think it's essential viewing, so definitely give it a watch if you're watching this. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome.